Okay, welcome everyone. This meeting is now called to order. The roll call has been taken by the clerk. Just a reminder of the rules of procedure that this meeting is held in hybrid format in accordance with Article 18 of the city's procedural bylaw. Staff and delegates participating virtually are reminded to keep their video and microphones off until requested by the chair or members of the committee. All cameras for virtual committee members shall remain on to ensure quorum. All members of the committee will vote by physical show of hands. Please leave your hand raised until the chair has determined the result of the vote. In an event of a connection or service interruption that affects quorum, we may recess the meeting for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting will be adjourned. So moving on to item 2 on the agenda, are there any declarations of conflicts of interest with anything on the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing none. We have 2 delegations. We don't have Colin yet. No, okay. So we'll move on to Sylvie Congara, Andrew Rodriguez, and Alex Lee Burns speaking to item 4.1, the demolition of buildings at 324 Grand River Ave. So I'll ask you to come up to the table here so we can hear you a little bit easier. And then you'll have 10 minutes to speak, inclusive of questions from the committee. So when you're ready, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, everyone. We weren't expecting a presentation tonight. We're here to speak to you about the demolition of the old waterworks complex at 324 Grand River Avenue. So it's as you may or may not know, a complex of water treatment facilities that were constructed in the late 1800s and were in service right up until about 2012. All of the buildings are at end of life or approaching end of life. 2 of the buildings, which we coined buildings 2 and building 7, have designated facades. These are proposed to be fully retained, restored, and incorporated into a future use. A project that's yet to be brought forward, but it is in the budget to design office and storage buildings for expanded use of the environmental services group. Few curated items that we're gonna put on display: old switchboards, photographs, things of that nature displayed throughout the administration complex. We have administrative buildings there. Yeah, thank you, Alex. Pumps, piping, a few pieces of equipment that might be of interest, have some sort of cultural value to them. We displayed, presented in the public realm somewhere with interpretive signage. Most likely Waterworks Park is what we're thinking. It's not yet decided. There's no formal plan for that piece of it. We're right now in the very early stages of demolishing the buildings first, and then we'll work with cultural and tourism groups and the city to kind of plan out our next steps for preserving and putting up any interpretive signage.
That's it. Anyone else have anything to add? No? Okay. Any questions from members of the group? Dan Brown, go ahead.
Who determines end of life on a building?
So, good question, obviously. So we maintain these buildings as part of our regular maintenance to a degree that maintains the condition of the building. As I said, they were decommissioned, so to speak, in 2012. As part of our capital plan, we did condition assessments, and the condition assessments by I believe it was J.L. Richard. Yeah. Yep. Identified these buildings as costing more to keep than their value. So the majority of these complexes are constructed in, I believe, the 60s and onward, not having much historical value. Those pieces, there's nothing really we can do to keep them, to reuse them. They're very niche built for the purpose. You have filter decks. These are very large process modules that really can't be easily adapted for reuse. So tearing them out rather than preserving them to do nothing is the logical choice that was recommended by the consultant.
And can you tell us more about your salvage plan for the materials that are being used, taken from the demolition?
So absolutely, we do have on-globe consultants that are on right now. They're preparing the specifications for the tender. That tender includes a minimum of, correct me if I'm wrong, 65% reuse of salvageable materials. As far as a detailed plan for salvage, it will be up to the contractor, once we do retain a contractor, to propose a detailed salvage plan to the city and its consultant for review and approval before proceeding.
Or salvage or recycling?
As applicable, I would say some items obviously won't be salvageable, but for those items that are salvageable, there's a lot of value in historical brick, for example. Collecting it will be a priority.
Anything else, Dan?
Not right now.
Okay. Tamara?
Just timeframes, I guess is what I'm looking for. So between the demolition of the buildings that aren't required, protection of that facade until something is developed and behind it, what does that timeframe look like, and what's the protection in place for that?
So the plan, once we demolish the buildings that we're going to eliminate, we have a plan to temporarily keep the buildings to the south. There are 4 buildings to the south. The idea is to, as part of this demolition, restore the facades of buildings 2 and 7, make stable the buildings, provide heat and power back to these buildings, as well as the 4 buildings to the south. We have in our capital plan for 28 through 2030. Design starting in 28, construction hopefully in 2030 of a storage and office facility that, whether it will be on the west side or the south side of the existing buildings 2 and 7, it will be integrated into buildings 2 and 7 as a whole. So we won't be building behind it. There won't be a need to temporarily shore or preserve the facades. It will all be restored as part of this deconstruction and demolition project.
Anything else?
No,
From you?
that's,
No.
that's what the concern is always the comparison with the timekeepers. Just
Right.
I'd rather have it looked at.
Any other committee members have any questions? Okay, I have a couple. So when the salvage plan happens, will that come back to the Heritage Committee? So the Heritage Committee will be aware of the salvage plan?
Through the chair, no, probably gonna not coming back to the Heritage Committee, it's not subject to the demolition application.
And then, kind of going along the same line as Tamara, when you're demolishing the rest of the buildings is, I think you kind of answered it. There's no shoring or stabilizing to stabilize the walls that need to occur to make sure that damage doesn't happen during the, demolition process.
Yeah, that's correct. So the existing west facade that interfaces with building 9, that'll be peeled away, for lack of a better term, from building 7. The existing facade of building 7 was maintained as part of that addition. So it's just restoration of that facade. There'll be no temporary shoring required. Any structural concerns that do exist or may exist that weren't previously identified would be addressed through that construction so that it was immediately rectified and made stable. Restoration of a similar window style is the intent. All of the old windows on building 7's west facade were bricked in. West facade is not designated, only the north facade, but we're going to attempt to emulate the north facade in the west.
Yeah, and then one other quick question, the pumps that you're talking about, I like that they're coming, to a public facing, because currently they're not seen. Do we know if they're Watrous pumps that were originally made in Brantford? I know the earliest water treatment plant they were Watrous, like built in Brantford pumps that were used.
I don't believe those pumps are still in place at that facility, and
Yeah, I think they did get replaced. And then do we know anything about the scope or scale of the project, the rebuilding project? Because I know the county's starting to look at an expansion and it costs, but huge amount of money for these water treatment plants.
Right, so the proposed construction, it's for storage and office space. So it's more for the growth on the operational side for water distribution and wastewater collection steam, so. It doesn't have quite the price tag that a water treatment expansion would have.
Okay, thank you. Alan, you had something to add?
Well, I was just gonna mention that there will be a future heritage permit that will come back to this committee, so this won't be the last you hear of this site. Certainly when we're at that point, and again, to your question about timing, Tara,
It's okay.
it may be a couple of years, but when the design is more fully developed as to what this storage and office facility is going to be, that this facade is going to be integrated into the. Again, that'll be a heritage permit, that'll come back to the committee.
Great. Any other questions from members of the committee? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the staff report.
Chair, let's bring the presentation up.
My computer's just a little slow tonight. It's a movie.
This application is for HD 0225 for the demolition of buildings at 324 Brantford Avenue. Next slide. Three twenty-four Grand River Avenue, is a location of the waterworks complex and is a designated property under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And is designated by bylaw 194-94. The front facade of building 2 and 7 are designated, along with the east facade of building 2. Since the property is designated, review by the Heritage Committee is required. Next slide. So the waterworks complex is located on the south side of Grand River Avenue, near the intersection of Morale Street, with the property extending towards the banks of the Grand River. Next slide. So the buildings proposed to be demolished are highlighted in yellow, and they include buildings 1 and 8 through 13. The designated facades of buildings 2 and 7 are shown in red. And buildings 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 are being retained at this time. The city staff have commissioned numerous studies, including a cultural heritage rich management plan and an in-depth feasibility study. So heritage impact statement was completed in 2016 prior to the construction of the environmental services admin building. Next slide. So we have a list here of rationale of why staff supports this application. Only non-designated buildings are proposed for demolition. The designated portions are being retained and the buildings of these designated facades as well. The obsolete site will be redeveloped in the future for city use, giving it new life. The designated facade will be incorporated into the design of the new building. The complex cannot be made available to the public for an alternate use. This is because the facility has controlled access. The preservation of heritage attributes and in-depth documentation has been completed, including LiDAR, topography, and mapping. And several items will be preserved, including a breaker panel, pumps, which we utilize for public art installation and numerous plaques. Next slide. The staff recommend that report 2025-240, demolition of building at 324 Grand River Avenue. property designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act be received. And that comment from the Brantford Heritage Committee included in staff's future report committee of the whole, planning and administration regarding the demolition of buildings at 324 Brantford Avenue. Do you have any questions? Please let me know.
Okay, any questions for staff with this report? I guess I just have one, the LiDAR that was completed on all of the buildings to be demolished, or just like the engineer's house, which is probably
I
the
believe,
second.
through the chair, I believe it completed through all the buildings.
Okay, great. Great. Any other questions from committee members? Okay, seeing none, we have an opportunity for comments. So do people have comments that they would like included, or do we just want to receive this one?
Comment.
You have a comment? Go ahead.
I think this is a great example of the city taking ownership of a property and doing the right thing with it. It's a great example of what other properties could be done, and hopefully that encourages other property owners and heritage areas to do similar.
Yeah.
So they're setting a good example for what should and could be done.
Very good. Dan, go ahead.
I guess my comment would be, I'm looking forward to hearing what they're going to do with the solvents of the building.
Okay. We can include that. Any other comments? I have one, perhaps, they could, in designing the proposed replacement, it would be nice if the city could consider, paying homage to the, engineer's building and the similar style of the designated facade in the new expansion. That would be, I think, appreciated by members of this committee for sure. Any other comments? Okay, we need a mover and a seconder for those comments then. I see Pat and Lise. Thank you very much. Can you just confirm the wording of ours so that we can make sure we have things captured properly? I know, you're.
Done shorthand for you guys.
Just make it up as you go.
Okay, so Tamara supports the long-term plans for the property, and appreciates the positive example set by the city. Committee has interest in the plans for salvage materials as a result of the demolition. And the committee supports suggests a similar design to the current building features on the site, aligning with historical features. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Everyone's happy with how their comments were worded? Okay. So then, if no one has any comments further, then we'll call the question on the receiving and those three comments. So all those in favor? Thank you. I declare that carried. Do we have Colin here? Yes? Okay. We have a second delegation. This is Colin Commissioning to speak to proposed alterations at 108 to 112 George Street. So as a reminder, Colin, I know you've been here before, but you have 10 minutes, inclusive of questions.
Yeah, just turning video and audio on. Sorry, I missed that little piece there. How you guys doing?
You got your 10 minutes, okay?
Yeah, so thanks for having me here. Our goal here, we were in front of you guys back in September in order to get a variance to convert the building on George Street to a 9-plex. So you guys approved that. So now I'm here, I submitted the drawings of the new look of the building. Obviously, nothing is changing on the outside. The only thing from a front facade that's changing is that we had to put windows in the basement just based on OBC code. There has to be a certain number of windows in the basement. I work with Patrick in the Heritage Department to try and see if we could put the windows sort of right below the windows that we currently have, but it didn't work out that way. So he suggested that we kind of move the windows over a bit just to, make it look symmetrical. So that's what we did. So that's really the only change in the front facade. The side facade is not changing at all. And then in the back of the building is sort of where we have mechanics. So air condition units, units for heating and cooling on the inside of the building. And then we're doing double-story lofts on the top floor. So we have balconies for the top 3 apartments. So that would change, the back facade. And that's more of an OBC thing since we wanted to go double story. So I was told that we'd have to have a balcony, for a place for somebody to, exit the building if there was a fire, just based on the code. So we've put balconies in all 3. They're beautiful. I think it's gonna, make those double story lofts, very nice. And then the only other thing in the back is really the air condition units. And then there's walk-ins to the basements at the back in each vestibule. There's a walk-in. One vestibule has a walk-in for one basement, and then the other vestibule has a shared walk-in for the 2 basements down there. So not much really changing on the outside. I mean, that's why we bought the building. The building's beautiful. I think we're just enhancing it, and it'll literally be one of a kind building in Brantford. I don't think there'll be anything like it on the market. So
Great, thanks, Colin. Do any members have any questions for the delegation? Yep, go
What
ahead.
was the original purpose of the building? Was it office space? Or what was it?
correct. We bought it from the Child and Family Services of Erie. We actually bought all their assets. So we actually bought Chatham as well. So we're doing something kitty corner to this building in October of this year. So yeah, it was office space. The top 3 units have kitchens and such in them. The bottom units were just, offices. And then the basement's not been developed at all. So we'd like to underpin the basement and make it, 3 apartments in the basement. And there'll be a permit we're putting through for the Chatham locations that are kitty corner. So there's 42 units we're looking to do over there. And the interesting thing is one of the buildings, which is 80 Chatham, looks exactly like this building. It's not as old and it's not heritage, but I believe it's on the designation of being heritage. So we'd like to develop that building and make the 2 of these buildings look the same. We're going to light them up at night and just, change this whole corner downtown to be more of a residential community instead of a commercial community is what it is right now.
So. Commercial originally these were commercial buildings, right? That's my understanding. So has that been changed? Is that designation been changed from commercial to now residential? Has that been passed by council? Does anybody answer that?
That's a staff question.
Is that a staff question?
Yeah.
I believe the buildings originally were residential.
Originally.
Then at some point in the past were converted to office use.
Okay.
So that's, the applicant has purchased them, they were commercial uses. But
Yeah, so.
when they were first built, it was residential.
So as a representative from BIA, so my concern is what prevents a commercial developer to change a ground floor commercial property to residential in the downtown? This is still part of the downtown catchment, so there's a concern there. The BIA would be concerned with that.
So, well, maybe we can
So-
park that question
Yeah.
for when we get to staff.
That's where I was
questions
using that.
I could actually give some information there if you'd like, because I know just recently the bylaw where these buildings are, including the one on Chatham, has changed to a high density use. So I think it's 2024 bylaw. So for us, it just means that we can do high density res in it. We haven't been asked or told that we had to do a commercial first floor. Based on the new bylaw, we can do residential in the whole, in all properties. So I think that'll make a difference. Unless we're being told that we have to do commercial on the first floor. That hasn't really been brought to our attention so far. So
Any other questions for the delegation from committee members? Dan?
Maybe more of a comment. I was glad to hear that you're going to save the bricks that you're be removing for future repairs on.
we found quite a bit, and we're actually doing exposed brick on the inside, and the exposed brick on the inside is in immaculate condition. So, we're trying to save the building and leave it the way it looks and just enhance on it, make it obviously look more modern on the inside, but it's going to look beautiful when it's done.
Any other questions for the delegation? Oh,
So
okay, go ahead, Lisa.
maybe more of just a comment, just because you mentioned the exposed brick, I'll just say that that's rare to find these days, so I'm impressed with that, because I know for a lot of people, that would be that. You want that space, so that's pretty cool, and the salvaging as much as you can of the bricks, because you don't think about it until later on.
Yeah,
I was
one comment to add to that, there's red brick on the inside and yellow. So if you look at the building, there's yellow arches, and there's yellow exposed brick on just inside the door. So there'll be yellow exposed brick along with red exposed brick further into the apartments. And to your point, it's rare. That's why I think this project will be a one of a kind in Brantford. You won't find any other apartments like what we want to bring to market here. So.
Love it.
That was gonna be one of my kind of comments about this. Like, I'm glad that this is going ahead. You've done a lot of work with this, Colin, so I'm very appreciative of your work and your, kind of eye to the heritage of things. Like Alan mentioned, this was originally row house residential stuff, at some time in the future. It then went commercial, so now we're going back to housing, which was the original use. And we all know about, housing problems in Brantford specifically. So it's good to see some of the once commercial uses going back to that original residential. And actually, I'm staying with someone when I'm working in Vienna who lived in that house kitty quarter on Chatham, that red brick house, when they were growing up. So I'm glad that you've undertaken this project and putting these buildings back to good residential use. So thank you for that.
No problem.
Okay, with that, we'll go to the staff report.
There, this is the application for heritage alteration application HA 0125 for 108, 112 George Street. Next slide. 108 to 112 George Street is designated property under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act and is designated by bylaw 261-89. Next slide. So here are photos showing the location and an aerial image for 108 to 112 George Street. The building was originally purpose-built residential, then became commercial when the applicant purchased the property, and the applicant is now proposing an alteration to convert it into 9 residential units. So under the zoning bylaw, the new zoning bylaw is classified as apartment dwelling, and this is in the upper downtown. So no commercial required in this. Scope of work proposed includes 6 new windows on the front facade. You'll notice that, sorry, next slide. You'll notice that, the red circled windows with the line are in alignment with the windows above. And then the yellow ones are offset slightly. This is the only change proposed to the front facade. At the rear, 9 low profile skylights. 3 windows changed doors, 3 new below grade entrances, HVAC and electrical meters. External lighting and security cameras will be added. Next slide. So the rationale for staff support includes that the heritage attributes listed within the designated bylaw will not be altered. The addition of the basement windows on the front facade have been designed to blend in with the facade and will not be intrusive to the property. The proposed project is adaptive for reusing the property and creating residential units. The proposed alterations are in keeping with Art Canada's standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places. Next slide. So staff recommend that report 2025-285 titled proposed alteration to 108, 112 George Street. Property designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Application HA 01-25 be received. And that the request to alter the designated property at 108 to 112 George Street in accordance with details described in the heritage permit. Application HA 01-25 be approved.
Okay, any questions for staff? Dan, go ahead.
The front windows that are being added down below, are they below ground or are they above ground?
They will have window wells, but they will be like in line with. Like the grass, but like a little bit above, so it'll be a little bit above and a little bit below ground. So it's an OBC requirement.
Yeah, and so what will they use for a window wheel on the front?
To be sure, I'm not 100% sure, but it's call unable to.
Yeah, it's just that it's visible from the street on the facade of the building. If it's one thing to put windows in there, but if they have to be these huge metal wells in front of them or. Yeah.
Right.
Changes the aesthetic.
Things.
Okay, well, we're working on getting Colin back in and seeing if we can ask him that. Oh, there he is.
Yeah,
Colin,
yeah, I heard that question. So I believe the window well, it was mentioned that, part of the window will be above ground, part of the window will be below ground. We have a finished height on the drawings of about 8'2". So if you imagine in your mind that the windows in the basement will be quite high, but they're not actually escape windows per se. So the actual window well will be metal and it'll probably go just above the grass line, just because, obviously the grass has to go up there. We're planning on doing some landscaping in front of that, just to make it look appealing. Right now, there's nothing there, but you will see a little bit of a lip of that egress window, and that's the metal that's going down, below ground. So I don't think it'll be obtrusive, and because we'll be, doing some landscaping in front of it, you probably won't even see it.
So they are egress windows or they're not egress windows?
I don't believe they are. I don't think all of them are, because we have egress windows in the back as well. So, and a doorway going in. So I think they constitute them as egress. The more windows people can escape out of, the better. But they won't be obtrusive in any manner. And that little metal piece that goes down there would just come above the grass line.
okay. Any other questions for staff about this? Colin, you have something to add?
I just wanted to respond to the question from earlier about
Hmm.
where commercial uses are mandated in the downtown. In many areas, we've made it flexible, so you can have either a residential project or a commercial project or mixed use. But there are some areas in the downtown where the commercial is required on the ground floor and dwelling units need to be above. And that would be in the upper downtown zone. In which this property is situated would be for any property that's fronting or flanking along Market Street. And then the historic Main Street zone also prohibits the dwelling units from being on the ground floor, so that will have other commercial type uses. So that includes Colborne and Galuzi Streets from Brant Ave over to Clarence Street and in the Victoria Square Heritage District.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
So basically, this isn't gonna allow another developer to come in and say, well, you allowed this to change. They wouldn't be able to do that because they're in a specific area that's not really gonna be affected.
Yeah, the zoning they
This
have
is
is
different.
flexible, they
Yeah.
can go
Yeah.
commercial, they can go residential, because
Yeah.
kind of need both. We need
Yeah,
presence
no,
downtown, but
I've
we
seen-
also don't want to lose the commercial function, but we've
Yeah.
targeted the area where it's mandated to have ground floor commercial again to Market Street and then the
Okay.
historic Main Street area.
Any other questions for staff with this? Dan?
Sorry, it was also mentioned that, is it designated heritage, commercial or designated heritage, residential? There isn't, as far as I know, there isn't a difference. It's either designated or it's not designated, not one or the other. Is that correct?
The designation that applies to this property.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's just
it
to a building.
applies to the property regardless of what use.
Use.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that.
I'm gonna do a comment here because I forgot to include it earlier. And Michelle mentioned it, there's skylights going in. And you know, if the skylights were on the street facing facade, you know, that would kind of be disingenuous to the building. So again, Colin's done a very good job thinking about this through. Yes, we want skylights. Okay, we can put them on the backside and it doesn't detract from the heritage character of the building. So another great use. Okay, we have a motion before us to receive this and approve it.
Was Counselor Sullivan?
Oh, did you have your hand up, Counselor Sullivan? No, okay.
Just waving it around.
Maybe he was trying to move it, or second it. Was that it? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, okay, so we have a mover, a seconder. Dave, okay. Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. I declare that carried. Moving right along, consent items. We have minutes from our April meeting that were circulated. Did anyone notice any errors or omissions in the minute? No? Okay. Then I will seek a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Dave. Seconder, Adam, thank you very much. I'll call for the question then. All those in favor? Thank you. I declare that carried. There are no resolutions and no notices of motion. So we're at the end of our meeting. But before we stop, Pat, last time we were introducing committee members and then you had microphone problems. Do you just want to give yourself a? I don't want to like exclude you that way. So if you want to give a brief introduction for yourself.
I'm a lifelong member or citizen of Brantford, really interested in the city and interested in learning about the heritage aspects of the city.
Great. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Great. Tamara, thank you. See everyone next month.
That was the first time.